I'm Phil,
And I'm Shayne.
and this is episode 23 of My Tech Opinion. On this episode, we're talking about Raspberry Pis. So let's get started now. Welcome to My Tech Opinion, episode 23. My name is Phil Edwards, and I'm in Melbourne, and I'm joined by my regular co-host in Perth, Shayne Johnston. G'day, Shayne.
Hey, Phil, how are you?
Good. Excellent. Before we get underway, I just want to remind everyone that My Tech Opinion is brought to you by Aussie Tech Heads Web Hosting. For great hosting plans and support, visit athwebhosting.com.au. For the listeners and viewers joining us for the first time, My Tech Opinion is a program that has a deeper look at a feature topic each episode, and it won't always just be the two of us. Where possible, we'll also have guests join us and lend their expertise and knowledge to help us unpack our feature topic. That said, in our feature topic this episode, we're looking at Raspberry Pi mini computers and possibly some of the things you can do with them. So we're here. We're doing it. How you going, Shayne?
Good, yeah. Everything's excellent. Health-wise is all good. Got the clean bill of health from the radiologist yesterday about the deep vein thrombosis thing that I had. So I just got to get the okay from the doc, and I'll be probably off the blood thinners.
Awesome.
So yeah, so everything's going well in the health department. Work's all right. Now I don't know if I told you guys last week or not, or last episode, but my immediate boss, he's left, so we're kind of bossless at the moment.
Always headless chook, always good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good, and it's only a couple of weeks before I go on holiday, so yeah, everything's happening.
Nice. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Nothing too exciting in my world since our last episode. As we've talked about, I do community radio, and we were doing an outside broadcast the other day, and the mixing panel died. For the first time in 10 years, I've had a piece of equipment fail at an outside broadcast site. So I've been feverishly researching new mixing panels, and I bought one for the station yesterday, and I'm very excited because unlike a traditional mixing panel, it's got all the faders and all the knobs and everything. This thing has no buttons.
Oh, really?
And you plug all your stuff in there, and you connect it via Wi-Fi to an iPad or a laptop, and you do everything in software-based.
Oh, okay.
So the cool thing about it is that I can have the box with all the things plugged into it sitting 5 meters away from me, and all I need in front of me is an iPad to do all the mixing.
All right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, until it gets hacked.
Well, the way that I'm setting it up is that it's not being on an internet connection.
Oh, okay. Well, I suppose it doesn't have to be, really, does it?
So you've got 3 options. You can have it as an Ethernet client, so you plug an Ethernet cable into it and have it in an existing network. You can have it as a Wi-Fi client, so you can hook it up to an existing Wi-Fi network, or you can have it as an access point, so it will connect as an access point, and that's how I'm going to run it, so that the only things that can connect between each other are the device that I've got set up. So hopefully that'll work. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, that's about as exciting as it gets in my world, I can tell you that. So it's football season is gone crazy, and I'm exhausted. And I will be probably more exhausted after the end of this weekend because I've got lots of things to do with football happening. So viewing, attending, recording programs, all sorts of things.
So if Hawthorn make the grand final, are you going to go?
Yeah, I'll go. I have a membership that guarantees me a ticket should I choose to take it up on it.
Yeah, I'll probably see you there then.
So yeah, so assuming, because Shayne, you're a West Coast supporter, if West Coast win against Collingwood in the first round of finals, which is probably going to have happened when this releases,
yep.
then if West Coast wins, they go to the prelim. Now, Hawthorn are most likely going to lose against Richmond in the first week, which means that the only way for Hawthorn to get to the grand final, if those two things occur, would be to beat West Coast in Perth.
Okay.
I won't be coming to Perth for a game. I'm dedicated, but I'm not that dedicated. I'll watch it on TV.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we'll see what happens. So we're hoping that they do beat Richmond. That'll make our life a bit easier. So very quickly on some stuff that's been going on. You've added a note in there on Facebook. Have got a new website which I can't even get to, but I've found some blurb on it. Facebook Watch, and of course, it's another platform to watch streaming video on demand.
Yep.
So Facebook have said today we announce. Well, this was last month. Facebook Watch, a new platform for shows on Facebook. For more information, you can click on a link. It's comprised of shows, a new type of video on Facebook. Shows are made up of episodes, live or recorded, that will follow a consistent theme or storyline. Shows are a great format if you want to share a video series, like a weekly cooking show, a daily vlog, or a set of videos with recurring characters or themes. Gee, this might fit into that. Our little show here. Our goal is for Watch to be a platform for all creators and publishers to find an audience, build a community of passionate fans, and earn money for their work. It will initially be available to a limited group of people in the US on mobile, desktop, and TV apps before we make it available to more people in the US in the coming weeks. So it's going wider now. Because we're early with Watch, we're starting by testing it with a limited group of publishers and creators who are making shows. Also funding some shows to help see the ecosystem gather feedback and inspire others. So there you go. Have you've been able to get access to the page?
Yeah.
What have you seen on there so far?
Basically, it is. If I can just get my mouse to work, let me go there. So the heading is original shows and popular videos from producers and creators you love, all in one place. It's essentially going to be an extra tab within the Facebook environment. I guess it'll be curated around your likes and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yep.
Doesn't say, it's like a really kind of short blurb. There's like 2 sentences. Shows on Facebook Watch cover lots of real world topics, from teen drama to legendary sporting families and everything in between. Videos that everyone is talking about, popular videos, inspiring stories, and how-to guides from your favorite producers and creators. You won't want to miss a thing on Facebook Watch.
So in other words, it's sort of YouTube.
Yeah, except well, I mean YouTube's free as well, I suppose. But yeah, it's YouTube within Facebook.
So and there's a lot of videos and stuff on Facebook now. I suppose it's creating a bit more of a formal platform for those.
I think those ones will probably come out of the news feed and just go into this extra tab.
Yeah. Look, it'll be interesting to see how they go with it, and whether are they stretching themselves too much on this sort of thing. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe.
Because I think the thing that they've found is that Facebook is quite popular for short videos, 1 or 2 minute type videos. But when they get longer than a certain period of time, people just switch off. So they are probably trying to create an environment to have longer form videos and keep people on the site longer.
Yep.
Interesting to see how it goes. Watch this space. You never know, you might see this on here. Another thing that came up this week was that a Ukrainian black market dealer is responsible for a recent flood of Google Pixel 3 XL leaks. Google's about the forthcoming Pixel 3 XL have been leaking out for several months. And in recent weeks, the steady stream of information has kicked into full gear. Today alone, which was about a week or so ago, camera samples, a video of the phone charging wirelessly, and some high-tech res photographs surfaced, proving that there are several people that have already near production units in hand. And people are offering them for sale for around $2,000 each. The one thing about it is it's got the notch.
Yeah.
Everyone rubbished Apple for the notch.
Apparently, Apple didn't start it. Apparently, the first phone to get it was the
Was it an Oppo or something?
No, it was a Google phone. It was made by the guy who created Android and then left Google and then started his own phone.
I know the one you're talking about. I can't think of it offhand.
Yeah.
So there you go. Are you excited? Are you going to get one?
Well, it comes out, I've heard 2 dates. It comes out on the 4th of October.
Yep.
Which is a very special day for me. Or it comes out on the 9th of October. I'm
So you may have to buy one for yourself.
Yeah, I'm not one to get a phone unless the current phone that I've got has died in some way, like the phone before this one. Because I've got the original Pixel. I had a HTC M7 RAM 8 or something, and I kept that until the camera died.
Right. I see. You're good. So I'm on a 2-year turnaround.
Okay.
So I turn over every 2 years, and I try and eke as much value out of my old device as I possibly can.
Yeah, I usually either buy it outright, or on this one, I'm paying it off $50 a month or something.
Cool. Well, talking about new phones, Apple have also announced their event, which is going to be held on September 12th, or in Australia, it'll be September 13th at about 4 a.m. or something. And they're rumored to be releasing new phones, and they're supposedly calling them iPhone XS.
Apparently.
Which, we'll see. Who knows? But yeah, and probably new Apple Watches by that stage as well.
Yeah, did you see the leak from, was it 9 to 5 Mac?
Yeah, but I think the leak actually came from Apple.
Oh, so it's an official one.
Some a electronic press kit got released early or something like that. So
okay.
We'll find out what it is all next week. But whatever they bring out, I'll be buying one because it is my 2-year turnover.
All right.
So weirdly enough, my iPhone 7, which I of course have in my hand right there, that's right. I thought it was an important message, and it was not at all. That phone was ordered driving between Margaret River and Perth 2 years ago when I was over for a friend's birthday, and I'd gone out to Margaret River for a couple of days beforehand, and the pre-order period opened whilst we were in the middle of driving back. So my wife was driving, and I'm sitting there typing away on an iPad pre-ordering my phone. So
you would have come through my suburb. You would have come through Mandurah on the way up.
Oh, absolutely. No, I did. So yeah, so that was fun, and then we spent a fun night at the Gloucester Park Trots after that. So there you go. It's going back 2 years.
That's as good as it gets in Perth.
Living the life. So no, it's all good. What else has been happening? Oh, the other one was Foxtel have increased their prices for the first time in 2 years. This is an interesting one in a burgeoning market where they're losing, they're under pressure from a number of other areas. Foxtel have hiked the cost of its basic package for the first time in more than 2 years, as they're trying to offset high programming costs and heavy investment into new technology it has made to fend off rivals. It has informed its users will lift the price of the basic package by 11.5% or $3 from $26 to $29 a month. Increases more than 5 times Australia's inflation rate, which rose 2.1% in the second quarter of 2008. That's not a fair comparison because they haven't raised it for years. So there you go. I can't see if there's any more of that article, but the thing is that they are investing in a lot in there. But I don't know what the full tier upgrades are, but not many people would be on the basic package anyway. I mean, it'd be a pretty boring TV service if you're on the basic package.
True, but I mean, I'm not a business tycoon. But if you want to get customers, I would have thought the last thing you do is put prices up.
I totally agree with you. I think that this is a tough one. So the argument is that Foxtel have really all the subscribers that they will ever get.
Yep. About
30% of the population. They might have some add-on, some will drop off when they go to Netflix and things like that. It depends on what they're using it for. The argument is that people will just buy it if they really want it. The thing that annoys me is that I think that it's far too expensive. I mean, if we looked at Direct TV. I'm doing this without notice. So what are Direct TV pricing like?
Or even fetch.
So if we said Direct TV packages, so straight to Direct TV. So this is America. So in America, you can get Direct TV for $110 a month, but you're getting 330 channels for that.
Wow.
So you get HBO, which is a premium channel, Stars, Showtime, Cinemax, and a heap of other channels, all the sports channels and things like that. So you're getting a fair crack of channels on those. If we said, what are the bundles like? So if we said AT&T bundles, so they're saying that you can get DirecTV, AT&T Internet, and a home phone starting at $94 a month. Let's see if they've got. I need to do an address check, and I can't be bothered doing that too. No, I can't find an address that I'll be looking at. But yeah, so they've got packages going up, but you can get a decent package for reasonable costs there, and the amount of content you're getting is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So the American prices are not too bad, but the thing is they've also got a culture of subscription and stuff. So a lot of people have cable and they have Netflix subscriptions and stuff on top of that.
Yep.
But Foxtel was almost a bit too late being here, so. I think that they need to drop their prices in half, to be perfectly.
Yeah, or maybe do something like the NBN have done, where haven't they dropped the 12 megabit down one up altogether? So the bottom one is the 25, or the bottom one's the 50, or something.
Yeah, and they do. They have. The thing is, I don't know is of the economics of Foxtel, because they're not really a public company. They're owned by other companies and things like that.
Yep.
They do make money, and they made $1 billion profit, I think, or something like that. But the thing is, I don't know what their costs are per user, because you would argue that if they cut their costs in half, and in terms of buying the package, and you tripled your viewing audience, which I don't know if they would, they'd probably double it.
Yeah.
But if I could get a full package on Foxtel for $60 a month in HD, not pay the extra, I'd probably take it. The thing is that they and then they would have an increase in revenue on advertising. So the market is very different though, because in Australia, Foxtel own basically all the channels, except for a couple. In America, you hear them talk a lot about basic cable on TV and things like that.
Yep.
So what they do is they have a range of basic channels, and those channel companies basically provide that channel to the cable provider for nothing, and they make their money off advertising.
Oh, okay.
And then you look at something like a HBO, which is classed as a premium channel. The provider has to pay for that, so that's why you pay extra. So yeah, the market is different.
Yep.
So, but look, I think it's a silly move, but they've got it. They're doing that. That's their business thing. If I got Foxtel back, I'd probably get a sports package, and that's about it.
Okay. Would you go the 4K channel?
Yeah, if you get the sports HD, you get the 4K channel.
Oh, okay.
So if you're on either Platinum or Sports HD, you get the 4K channel.
All right.
But I don't have a 4K. I've got a 4K TV, but I don't have a 4K HDR TV at the moment. So I don't know if I'd get the full benefit of it at this stage. But well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So there you go. So I think that's basically about it for our little starting chat.
Cool.
We've sort of covered off everything nice and quick. We might take a break, and then we'll come back in a moment with our feature topic, which we're talking Raspberry Pi. You are watching or listening to My Tech Opinion. And welcome back to My Tech Opinion. It is episode 23, and we are talking in our feature topic now. We're talking about Raspberry Pi. Now, we're not talking about the food or the, I don't know what else you'd have with Raspberry Pi. It's not, not apple pie like American pie.
No, not
We
pecan
don't do
pie.
that to it. It is a mini computer, and a Raspberry Pi is a low-powered mini computer. It's designed primarily for hobbyists, and they have become very, very popular in the hobbyist world. They run, you can run multiple operating systems on them, but they're usually a variant of Linux. Or the most popular one is Raspbian, which is a variation that has been created by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. But yeah, you can do a heap of stuff with it. So that's a really brief rundown.
That's the segment. See you, folks.
Yeah, but they're a mini computer. So what I've got here is
Isn't Raspbian an offshoot of Debian?
yes. No, you're right. So what I've got here, so there's a couple of different flavors of Raspberry Pi. So they used to have the Raspberry Pi A, and let's have a. Actually, I should be in a different page to talk about this. There was the Raspberry Pi A, which was, if I do a different search, because this is really good doing it on a podcast, different.
I can talk amongst myself.
Models. Here we go. Raspberry Pi comparison chart. Perfect. So the first Raspberry Pi that was bought out a number of years ago was the Model A. Was the Model A. So it had a ARM V6 single core chip. So the Model A, Model B, and Model B Plus all had the same chip, 700 megahertz processor. God, I remember when I bought my first Windows 95 PC and it had a 90 megahertz processor on it. It draws 600 milliamps at 5 volts, and it has a video coprocessor, 256 meg of RAM. However, the B and the B Plus had 512 meg of RAM, and it would use a micro SD card. Then they've brought out a Model 2, which upped to an ARM 7 900 megahertz processor. And then there's the Model 3, which is 1.2 gigahertz, I should say. And the Model B3B Plus is a 1.4 gigahertz. So very brief, but effectively they run an ARM processor. They've got anywhere between 256 and 1 gigabyte of RAM, and they're primarily based off your hard drive is a SD card. Short and simple. And they vary from with their network capability from things like the original model had no Ethernet, no wireless LAN, no Bluetooth, and going through to the most recent Model 3 Plus. Sorry, Model 3 Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus has a gigabit Ethernet, integrated 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and 4.2 Bluetooth. So, they're fully featured computers.
Yep.
And you can run them. Now, they have a HDMI port as an output, and you can plug them into a TV, which, weirdly enough, the TV I'm watching you on, Shayne, is the TV I normally plug my Raspberry Pi into. But the other thing that I use is I use VNC. So I use them as a headless machine. And if I want to access the GUI, I just remote into them and access them that way, which I find is the easier thing because then I can use my keyboard and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
They also have some other variants. So there's also the Raspberry Pi Zero, and the original Zero didn't have wireless, but that's a Raspberry Pi Zero W, and that has a wireless card on it, which I'll lift the lid open, and you can see right there is a computer with the GPIO ports. It's got an SD card in there, 2 micro USB ports, and a mini HDMI. So there you go. You can see, actually, the mini HDMI is on the other side, so you can see that there. So depending on what you want to do with them, you might buy different flavors. And the great thing about these, I mean, the Pi Zeros, they cost about, I think, about $18 US.
Okay, but they haven't got as much grunt as the others.
No, but
Okay.
then they're a lot smaller. So you could have them as an embedded device. You know, there's multiple things that you can do with them. For example, I have two Raspberry Pis sitting in my equipment rack, which is up there somewhere. And I use mine for two different purposes. So one purpose is I have two things on it. I have a Pi hole install. So a Pi hole is effectively a DNS server. And what you do is you link to it on your devices on your network, and it will filter out advertisements as it comes in. So it acts as an intermediary. And when you go to when a web page or something goes to resolve a advertising site, it will just go, "We're not going to let you do that," and it just filters that out.
Yep.
But you can also use it for other things as well. And then I also run on that particular device. We've talked about on a previous episode. I use my Ubiquiti Wi-Fi setup here at home. And while I can buy a little device for that personally, I use that as my cloud, as my controller.
Yep.
So I have I just knocked my camera. Sorry about that, people. So I have that running on that. So it's perfectly powered to do exactly that sort of thing. The other device that I have it on is, which we've talked about on our IP telephony episode, was I have an Asterisk server. So I have a VoIP server running there. And the power of a Raspberry Pi 3 is more than enough to run anywhere between, I think, 20 to 25 concurrent VoIP phone calls.
Oh, wow.
So it's got a decent amount of grunt in it. And I wouldn't use anywhere near that level of calls here. But when we're looking at doing a VoIP project at the radio station, and we'll be putting a Raspberry Pi in for that as the PBX.
Yep.
So pretty cool. In terms of buying a device, let's have a look. Raspberry Pi Model 3. There's a retailer in Australia that will sell a Raspberry Pi Model 3 to you for $54.
You can also get it from my favourite online store.
Amazon.
Yes.
Excellent. Wonder how much Amazon sold it for. We'll have to have a look.
I think it's about the same. I think it comes from the same Australian supplier, to be honest. And they package it. They can also package it up with either an SD card, and I think you can get a case thrown in as well.
Yeah, and I recommend doing that unless you've got a specific use for them.
As long as I get the case that's compatible, so I can get to the network adapter.
Yeah, about $60. And does it say who they sell it through? Oh no, it's a different company. But yes, but yeah, and look, that's for a computer that does a fair crack. And I mean, as I said, the Raspberry Pi 3 Plus has 4 standard USB-A type ports, and they have the Ethernet and what have you. And the Raspberry Pi 3, if you get a Pi hat on them, they can actually also be powered by power over Ethernet.
Oh, okay.
Now, let me see if I can see one here. No, I can't. That's a pity. I didn't think about that. I actually have bought a device off eBay that will, that's a splitter that will run a power over Ethernet, turn power over Ethernet into an Ethernet and a power supply that you can use for that sort of thing. So that could even power one of these. It's actually bigger. The power unit is bigger than the computer.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite funny.
So if I don't have a PoE switch, I can just get a straight power adapter for whichever one.
Absolutely. And I've got Raspberry Pi power adapters too. The reason why I use the PoE option is because I have a UPS connected that's running my PoE switch. So therefore, if the power goes out, those devices continue to run.
Yep.
there's some specs about it. So in terms of what can you do with it, well, that's the good question. There are plenty of things to do with it. And the one of the best retailers that I find in Australia for Raspberry Pi stuff is um, a company called Core Electronics, and they're based out of Newcastle, but they sell a lot of Raspberry Pi stuff. And for example, they have what they call a NES Pi case, and it's a case that you put a Raspberry Pi in, but it turns it into a emulator, like a looks like a Nintendo Entertainment System, the original one.
Oh, right.
And you can use so you can use it for that and use it as a games emulator. And I have a feeling that even the Nintendo, throwback products that they brought out recently are based on a similar type of infrastructure than what a Raspberry Pi is, because it's really just the old games running on an emulator.
Yep.
So they have a few things that you can do there. And the other thing that the Raspberry Pi has, it has a big, you can have, it's got a camera port that you can buy a camera for it as well, a little ribbon camera that you can attach onto the front, and you can get cases that support the camera. But the Raspberry Pi 3, I don't know if you can see that on the screen, that's got a GPIO header in it, so those little dots along the top.
Yep.
On the standard Raspberry Pi, it has pins.
Yep.
So, but you can then plug in your own hardware to that. So you can start building your own electronics, and using Python or an appropriate a system that you can start having it do, interacting with actual things. So the best thing to have a look at, I think, that if you're interested in getting into this hobbyist sort of area of Raspberry Pi, have a look at raspberrypi.org is the base level.
Yep.
And what they have is that they have a blog, and there's a magazine and all that sort of stuff, that you can see what people are doing with them, and some examples where people have built an autonomous drone from scratch. So rather than going and buying a DJI or a Parrot or something like that, they are doing that sort of thing. You can build, what other things can you build with it? Emulators with card games. There's actually a really cool YouTube channel that I've been watching called I Made This, I think it's called, and he built an arcade machine with a Raspberry Pi in it. The funny thing is, he built this huge box.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's got a little thing inside it.
And it's all the actual, like the controllers take up a bit of space.
Yeah.
But it's a 22-inch monitor that he's mounted behind a thing, and there's this little Raspberry Pi at the back.
Yeah.
But the box is so big that he's actually built a heap of cupboards into the back of it because it doesn't need the electronics.
No, right.
So it's pretty cool. So, but yeah, there's a heap of different things that you can do. They're really good. They're a really good learning device if you want to learn to code.
Yeah,
probably the best way.
The language, I think you touched on it earlier. The language it uses is Python.
Yes, and you can use a number of different languages, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
But Python seems to be the popular one that people do. But they've got a whole lot of clubs, and there's things like that going around where you can actually take part. It's a really good education thing, and because of I think the whole idea behind the Raspberry Pi in the first place was as an education device. So it was to encourage, like computer programming and things like that in schools, and creating a low cost to entry device to allow that to happen.
Yep.
So, and it's small, so it doesn't take up a lot of space, and you can plug it into a TV and all things like that. So, they've got a lot of really good education resources, and you can find a heap of stuff that's available that you can do, and there's magazines, as I said. The other thing that I started to do and was extraordinarily unsuccessful at was one of the reasons why I got it was I was looking at trying to make, because let me go back a step. Where the Raspberry Pi from its size fits really well is an Internet of Things type device.
Yep.
So what I was trying to do was I have a cooling system here in my house, and it uses RF technology to communicate between the controller and the device. And I'd worked out what the frequency was, and so I bought a RF module where it could learn, it could monitor the signals being transmitted, and then you could turn that into code and actually control it from a Raspberry Pi, and in turn potentially run it from an app. Needless to say that I did a bit bad job and never worked.
No.
But that's the operator rather than the technology.
Yeah.
I'm a hack. I'm not a coder. I'm a hack.
Yeah.
And I'll just try and steal everyone else's code and see if I can make it work. So yeah, so I yawn badly in front of the camera. So there's some stuff that you've got there as a starting point. And I think you even linked in top 31 projects to try yourself on a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
So things like build a Pi bot. You can build a Raspberry Pi powered laptop, and you can buy cases to support that too. A homemade Nintendo Switch. Make the Raspberry Pi thinner. It's a portable computer. Miniature camcorder. A desktop PC, which the case that they've got that in, it's on the link. You'll see the link in the show notes. Everyone's awesome. A NAS, you can build it at. A smartphone, because there's all a heap of different modules that you can get to plug in. So you can get, I mean, it's got Bluetooth, it's got things like that already. But as I said, you can make it control switches, you can make it control relays. You can have it. The one thing I was trialing with Asterisk was that if you flicked a switch or a terminal closed, it wouldn't ring certain extensions. So in the case of our radio station, it was about having a device that wouldn't ring a phone in the studio when the studio was on air.
Oh.
So, I mean, that's a really basic thing, but it was me getting it. It was Asterisk was my issue. Getting it to behave properly is where I was having my problems. But you can there's even, I think, the Alexa code that has been released by Amazon. You can install that on a Raspberry Pi and sort of get that sort of thing going as an open source type thing.
Oh, so you can turn it into like a little Alexa device thing.
Yeah. So people have been building their own Alexas and things like that. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm just weather stations. What else is there? Oh, someone's put a Xbox Zero. So they put a Pi Zero in an old Xbox controller, and you can plug that directly into a TV. Tor routers. There's a few on there. So there's a few projects, and what I recommend is, if you're into playing around with stuff like that, have a look, see what the projects, and buy one. I mean, they're cheap as dirt, really.
Yeah.
And I think we said, let's have a look. Raspberry Pi. Do they have a kits? Model B kits. So you can get a kit for like $100 that does a few different things like that. And a friend of mine actually uses one as a media center in the built-in attached to the built-in screens in his car for his kids.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's really cool. And I think Western Digital even bought out a small 2.5-inch hard drive that was designed to plug directly into a Raspberry Pi a while ago too. So there's a few cool products around like that. The hard drive was bigger than the device, but still. So you've got some questions, Shayne.
I do, and you've kind of answered them along the way.
Okay.
What but for the benefit of our listeners, I'll go through them. Because what I was going to do with them, or with the Raspberry Pi that I get, because you convinced me to get one, is as a network monitoring thing. So with my Draytek router, I can, and I've already done it, I can set one of the ports up as a mirroring port.
Yep.
And according to the article that I found, which is in the show notes, I've if you mirror the WAN port and then obviously load the Raspberry Pi up with the appropriate software, it will monitor all the traffic going in and out and does nice graphs and all that kind of stuff. And
That's awesome.
yeah,
And
the software it uses is a like a module within the pfSense software that is an open source routing software.
yes,
Um, but the questions that I had, and you have kind of touched on, is can I use the Pi for multiple things? And you've already said yes, because you said that you use yours for like a PBX and
yeah.
media server and all that kind of stuff.
And I look, it comes down to what you're doing. So when you install Raspberry, and there's a couple of different ways that you can install it. I mean, there's a noobs download which you can just download and flash onto a SD card, and when you plug it into the machine, it will all set up. If you're really into command line stuff, then you can do it as a headless without the GUI.
Yep.
So that you can go into there. And I don't know if one of my devices is done up as a headless device, because I can still access it, but I'm accessing it through a web interface rather than, so I don't need the desktop GUI to do stuff with. And then, there's different ways that you can do that in. I always recommend, and I'm sure even the Raspberry Pi people would probably recommend, download Raspbian noobs to start with, because it will set itself up for you.
Yep.
And then you can access it. So the only thing that you'll need to worry about though is that, so for example, I have a little portable keyboard and mouse which work very nicely on the Raspberry Pi, except when you go to set it up, because you need to be able to access it to add Bluetooth devices.
And all that kind of stuff.
Well, you don't need drivers; it will do it natively, but you need to be able to access the modules before you do it. So a wired keyboard and mouse is sort of essential just to get it going.
Yeah.
So yeah, so but in terms of a pack, what I would recommend is, as I said, there's plenty of places around that do it. The place that, as I said, I recommended was Core Electronics, and they have a pack that starts at $99, and it's a starter kit that let's have a look. So it has a SD card with, I think, Noobs pre-installed, the Raspberry Pi HDMI cable, a power supply, and a case. So that will get you going, absolutely. But then you can, as I said, it depends on what you want to do. There's other kits that will have a small keyboard, or it will have a breadboard if you want to do some prototyping. There's a small wireless keyboard if you want to do something, if you want to have the wireless keyboard on there as well. What else is there? There's a Octopi kit. Let's have a look at that. What does that say? It's a 3D printing. It's a device to hook it into a 3D printer. So there you go. I have not seen that one before. I haven't bought new Raspberry Pi hardware for a while, but yeah, I mean, there's different things there, and there's tutorials, but really they've got all these kits that might have little bits of hardware, but you don't really need it. This particular, when I bought my Pi Zero, and some of the stuff's not in here now, but I bought this little case that has all the things that because I bought this in from the UK, so it's a little case that says, Pi Hut Zero, and it's got, I just closed it, that's always good. Not easy to open. But it has, for example, if you need to plug a keyboard in, it's got a micro USB to standard USB adapter. It's got a mini HDMI to standard HDMI adapter, and it's got the GPIO plugs and little things like that you can use to get things going on the device. So it's a little kit that was an extra $10 or something like that to get you underway if you're going with the Zero, which has got that smaller form factor. So, that's the great thing about it. There's all these little kits around that have all the little extras and stuff like that you can use to get yourself going. But in your case, I would recommend getting a standard Raspberry Pi 3 or a 3B plus or something.
Yep.
And then you've got the basis to start doing things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Question, or probably something we should go back over a little bit, because we've said that you got your Raspberry Pi and they come in different flavors. No pun intended. And then we've also mentioned about other modules and breadboards and that kind of stuff. I want to make sure that we don't confuse people with other pieces of hardware altogether. Things like the Arduino and all that kind of stuff. A Raspberry Pi is completely different to one of those.
That's right. So really, there's a suite of hobbyist computers that are out there. That's the short answer.
Yep.
I had the page because I knew you were going to ask that question. I got rid of it.
What, the comparison chart you found?
No. So the short answer is we're talking about Raspberry Pi, but really what we're talking about is a mini hobbyist computer.
Yep.
That's the short version. So if you want to get into mini hobbyist computers, if you have no idea what you're doing and you want to wade into it, I do recommend the Raspberry Pi because I think it has probably the biggest ecosystem out there. Then you do have the Arduino, which it's less of it's a computer, but it's not in the same vein as a Raspberry Pi because it is designed as something that you code and interface, and it's not really a GUI type device. But there are a heap of other ones out there. So there's things like this. I found this particular article. It was called. There's one called the MinoBoard Turbot Dual Ethernet Quad Core, and this is overspec. So it's got powerful quad core board featuring 2 gig of RAM and 8 megabit of flash storage built in, and twin Ethernet ports for flexible wide connectivity. But it costs $200. So it's cool, but it starts going out. Be nice if the actual thing clicked. That's great. Let's see if we click on this.
When you get to that sort of price, you might as well get an app or something.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. But there's things like the Orange Zero. Why doesn't that particular thing work? But there's even different flavors based on the Raspberry Pi that you can use. So there's the Orange Zero, I think it's called, which is a slightly low power, but it's actually even smaller again. And it will run, perfectly fine. I know a friend of mine through his newsletter was selling he was selling them for $40 each with Pi-hole pre-installed, so which is cool. So there's different options that you've got in terms of that. If just going to a different browser and see if this works this time. Why is that not working? Is my Pi-hole, talking about Raspberry Pis, is it blocking things?
Could be. I tried to that story about the Foxtel price increase that we touched on earlier.
Yes.
The first link I found was to the Australian site, the newspaper, and because I've got a ad blocker thing installed on my browser, it blocked the whole website.
Oh, yeah, don't you love that? Here we go. So we'll go. I've found a better article anyway. So what are the strengths of the Raspberry Pi? This is from ZDNet. They said the Pi's strength is its ease of use compared to many rivals. Years of work by the Raspberry Pi Foundation improving the Pi's core software have created a default operating system called Raspbian, which we talked about, which not only gets the best out of the Pi, but is loaded with free software. So there's a heap of stuff that's available there. And then there's some official support going on there. Now, when date was this? So March 2018, it says the shortcomings, there hasn't been a new board released since February 2016. They have released a new board since this was written. So here we go. So if you want a cheaper alternative than the Pi, you're going to have to compromise. So there's boards that have better hardware generally, but have far worse software support, and then those that have better software support are generally missing some key hardware features. So there's things like you can try a $29 Pine A64 board. On the board has advantages over the Pi, combining gigabit Ethernet, 2 gig of RAM, 802.11n Wi-Fi, and quad core, which a lot of those have now been rectified in the Raspberry Pi world. But the device was criticised in several reviews, such as poor software support, and some reviewers couldn't even get a working Linux desktop to boot. So there's things like that. What else is there? There's the Odroid C1, but it's missing Wi-Fi support. So have a look. So at the different alternatives is the point I'm saying, but you can put that into what you're wanting to do. There's also the Arduino, which you mentioned, which has really good hobbyist support, but the Raspberry Pi is probably a better all-round device.
Yep.
I would say. But you can even get hobbyist boards out there that can run Android too, so that you can run a hobbyist version of Android support. So if you want to, potentially you could even do something like we talked on a previous episode about Android Show, I think it was, or there was like a display version of the Google Home. That you might be able to get something like that on in the future and things like that. So the best thing to do is, if you want to get a board and you don't know what to do with it, get a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
If you have a project in mind and then you want to start going, well, all right, what can I do with that project? Research the project and see what the communities around are doing, because that might guide you onto the best board, whether it be an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi or something else.
Yep.
So yeah. So, but really, you can run. The great thing about a Raspberry Pi, at the very least, if you're happy with open source products from Linux distros, get Raspberry, and you can run it as a desktop computer. Straight and simple.
Yep.
Easy. So there you go.
Cool.
I've talked a lot. Is there anything else? Any other questions?
No, you've covered my questions. We went over the differences between a Raspberry Pi and other similar products like Arduinos.
Yep.
We did that. Look at my questions here.
There's one that you wrote in there, which was a note to me saying that that you might get McDonald's on the way home.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, no, I did that. I got that on the way home. I hadn't eaten all day and I was starving.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough too.
So much for the diet. No, I think we covered everything. I mean, we went through we touched on the 33 uses of what you can do with it. I touched on what I was going to do with mine when I get it, which is basically just do like network monitoring.
Yep.
I mean, the 3 could be a bit of overkill for that, but if I can do other stuff with it at the same time.
Absolutely. And the thing is that you can split your hobbyist projects into 2. And I'm probably in one camp at the moment, even though I would like to get into another camp, but I just need to develop skills and find time to do it. And that is, there's software projects. So you can have the Raspberry Pi running and you can get some software for it. You can do some programming and what have you, and use it purely as a software-based solution.
Yep.
And then the next stage is you can start going into hardware. So yeah, you've got the Raspberry Pi there, and using the GPIO headers and what have you, you can look at doing a hardware tool so that you can have it interact with real-world products.
Yep.
So then that starts going into a whole other direction again, and expanding what skills that you want to do and things that you want to do with that. So there's that those, and they can, you can buy one as a software solution, then converge it later on if you want to too.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So there you go.
Cool bananas. I think.
I reckon they're cool if you've got kids. Get one and get them to start coding and learning how to code, and get them interested in doing something constructive rather than playing Fortnite.
Yeah. They could go to Def. Can you hear about that 11-year-old who went to DEF CON and they had a whole bunch of um websites, voting websites and voting machines, and there's this 11-year-old who hacked one in about 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
No.
So yes. So there you go. I mean, we haven't gone hardcore into it, but we could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
But the short answer is they're relatively cheap. They're a cool tool to play with, and I do recommend paying. Like, there's a pack that's about $100 from a lot of retailers that has all the bits that you need. So it's a turnkey solution to get it up and running.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
So that's the way I'd go. The first one that I got was a kit, but then I have the second one I bought, I didn't buy it as a kit because I'd already had things that I used, and I didn't need the extra power supply because I was doing it differently and things like that. So they can become addictive where you want to buy more than one.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, like the PBX that I set up cost, we'll say $50.
Mm.
The phones are the expensive part.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all the add-ons that you get is where it becomes all fun and dandy.
Yeah, exactly. And even though we haven't gone like deep on the Pi, because it is really
unlike Jason Biggs in American Pie, he went deep in the Pi.
Exactly.
Sorry,
no, that's fine. No, because it's really up to your own imagination on what you can do with it. So, we could go deep into a particular project, but then 99% of our audience probably don't want to do that project.
No, look, if you want to start off, if you're into games and stuff like that, and you want to start off by getting, what do they call it? You can even buy them. Let's have a look.
You can get those like mini, like foot tall arcade kind of things that have got like the pedals and all that kind of stuff.
Pi-Cade. So there's so for example, the store that we mentioned in New South Wales has a thing called a Pi-Cade, and so if you just do a search Pi-Cade, and it's $295. Yes, it is $295, but it is a full mini cabinet with metal controllers, the buttons. I think it has the screen as well.
So when you say mini, is it like a couple of?
It sits on your desk.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I couldn't share it. So, well, if I remember to do this correctly, hopefully when I edit this video, I will drop a picture of the Pi-Cade where I wave. But yeah, it's a little desktop gaming so yeah, it isn't cheap, but it basically comes in a kit and you can just put it all together straight away.
Oh, okay.
Right. I'd get one, but I've got nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
And you can even build like tabletop machines and things like that and use the Raspberry Pi as the basis for it. So there's some cool stuff. So
and it's not just like the old arcade games where it's like one game and that's it.
No. You can have like hundreds, thousands on there.
Oh, right.
So so you can get like used to have the emulator boards and all that sort of stuff. Now you can just get the whole kit and caboodle. It's fantastic. So just looking at it, I don't think it has. I think you got to buy a Raspberry Pi, and I think you got to buy a screen for it. But it has the speaker, the buttons, all that sort of stuff that comes with it. Yeah. So it's probably a $400, $500 project, but still, It's cool,
Yeah.
and you'll get hours and hours of fun out of it. I might have to buy one at some stage.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there. I mean, you can, as I said, based on that, you can buy kits, but you can even source the buttons if you want to go hardcore into doing it all yourself. You can actually build it from scratch and
Yep.
just buy the little parts. If you're into um, milling and cutting board and painting, you can do all that and build it your own thing too. So it depends on how handy you want to be and how involved in the project you want to get to.
If I was to do that, I would probably swap the buttons and the joystick around because I'm left-handed.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, there's a reason for you to do it.
Yeah, it's a reason. Not a good reason, but it's a reason.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. There's an advantage of doing a make your own toy.
Yeah.
So perfect. So yeah, so there you go. There's a bit of a discussion on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. You'll find that depending on the topics that we cover in the future, we might refer back to the Raspberry Pi for different things.
Yes, and we have talked about it briefly as well in our previous episodes because, as I said, IP telephony and we've got Asterisk running and things like that. Well, I do. There's so many other and the Wi-Fi software as well.
Yep.
The other thing that I haven't successfully done, but that was because I just didn't persist with it. But the particular UPS that I've got has you can plug that into the Raspberry Pi and have monitoring software of how the UPS is going as well.
All right.
So, which is cool. So yeah, there's a heap of different things that you can do there. So,
Cool.
So there you go. Easy.
Excellent.
Well, we've talked about Raspberry Pi. There's going to be a heap of links in the show notes.
Yep.
So make sure you have a look at those. If you've done a Raspberry Pi project, send us an email. mytechopinion@prosumerit.com.
Yep.
You can see that at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on the video, but I'll repeat it again. mytechopinion@prosumerit.com. And we'd love to hear and see if you've got any photos of what you've done as well. Send it through.
So, just on the show notes, because we keep referring to these show notes, but I don't think we've ever specifically said where you can find them.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
So,
well, what I do is when we edit it, I will copy the links and I will put it into the description of our YouTube video.
Yep.
And if you're listening to it on the podcast, look at your favorite podcast app and there'll be a heap of notes in there with the links in there as well.
Yep. And then when I add the YouTube video to our webpage, I also put the description of the YouTube video in there. And then so you can get it on our webpage, you can get it on our YouTube page, you can get it on the audio page, the Whooshka thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Couldn't think of the name, but then. So that's where you find our show notes. In case anyone was wondering.
Yep. So you can see all the links we talk about, and if there's anything we talked about in our little chat at the start, it's all in there.
Yep.
Good. It's usually the hardest part of doing the whole episode, the show notes.
Yeah, well, I find while we're talking about the show notes, I usually convert the links that are in the YouTube video or in the YouTube description. I'll actually click on the link and then I'll actually copy the link that opens up and then put that back into the description for what goes on the webpage.
Okay. Is that because YouTube doesn't put it in as a link?
It kind of does, but it kind of goes via something else. Like it goes kind of via a YouTube thing, and then
so that they have clickable stats.
Yeah,
it's YouTube and Google watching everything that you do. Yeah. All right. Anyway, well, you can find the links in the show notes. If you click on the show notes in the Whooshka thing or in the podcast notes, you won't get the weird pass through. No. We'll go to a quick break and we'll come back to wrap this up on My Tech Opinion. And welcome back to My Tech Opinion. We are wrapping up this episode number 23. We have been talking about Raspberry Pis, and as you would have heard before the break, visit the show notes to get some links to some information about them if you want to get into that hobbyist market and do some cool stuff there too. We're finishing up though, Shayne.
Yeah, we are.
So if you'd like to send us an email, mytechopinion@prosumerit.com is the email address. We would love to hear from you and what your thoughts are on anything, topic that you want us to talk about in the future. Comments about how badly I completely stuffed up the whole Raspberry Pi thing and gave you little to no information, or alternatively, how well I did. You can decide. But yeah, so all that sort of stuff. So make sure you send us an email through. We'd love to hear from you. Also, leave us a review on the Apple Podcasts or Google Podcast directory, because it helps us get noticed and other people can find us and get more listeners, and we can get more things happening on it. So make sure you do that. Next episode is episode 24, Shayne, and we're going to be talking to Glenn Goodman, who people might know from Aussie Tech Heads Radio. He has a PC repair, web hosting, and podcast small business. So we're going to talk to him all about that. So make sure you stay tuned. Keep an eye on your podcast feed, or keep an eye on the YouTube channel for that next episode to pop up.
Yep.
So we're looking forward to having that discussion. Funnily enough, talking about Glenn and his business with Aussie Tech Heads, we're brought to you by Aussie Tech Heads Web Hosting. For great hosting plans and support, visit hchwebhosting.com.au, and they can get you up and running with a website space pretty quickly. If you want to get that WordPress install done or something like that, they can surely help you.
They can.
So there you go.
Good stuff.
We got all the formalities out of the way. Until next episode number 24. Shayne, thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Phil.
Excellent. And until then, thanks everyone, and have a good one. We'll see you next time on My Tech Opinion. Bye.
Bye.
Done.